is communication and conflict. How should we communicate? Going back to that Pat Lencioni triangle there about irrelevance and immeasurability and anonymity, you've got to communicate. You've got to speak, and you don't. We all jump on Zooms and just do the work, don't we? Right? We get on and bash away, and by the end of the day, you're zoomed out, and what's not happening is that we are not getting those organic kind of moments and opportunities around the water cooler, in the canteen, in the corridor, where we're catching up, and all that lovely teamwork stuff and relationship building is not happening because we've been working remotely for a year and a half, for a long time, nearly a year and a half. So people will be feeling anonymous. Communicate, get opportunities, find the time to have conversations, not about work, but about, purpose, relevance, communicate about, what's going on in their lives. And you know what? Finally, we don't have the time. I know that's what you're going to be saying. That we don't have the time. You do have the time. You can get more efficient. If you set a meeting for an hour, there's a thing called Parkinson's Law. Look it up, Parkinson's Law, which is all about the efficient use of resources. So if time is your resource, it's a bit like the analogy is like using a tube of toothpaste. When you've got a new tube of toothpaste, you've got all the resources in the world. You get a nice big squeeze of toothpaste and you brush your teeth and, happy days. But when that toothpaste tube is nearly empty and you've rolled it right up and you're squeezing that last little bit of toothpaste out and you haven't got all the resources that you had at the beginning, you can still brush your teeth. You can still get the job done. You can get enough toothpaste on there to do the job. So if you've got a meeting on Zoom to talk about work, the weekly sales meeting or whatever it might be, and you set that meeting for 1 hour, I guarantee you fill that hour, don't you? You fill that entire hour. What if you set the meeting for 45 minutes? You'd still get done what you need to do. If you only allowed yourself 45 minutes to do the sales talk and do the sales meeting, you'd get it done in 45 minutes if you're disciplined about your time, leaving you 15 minutes that you currently, have to talk about your team. How's everyone doing? What's going on? Is there anything we need to talk about? Any mistakes anyone's made they want to talk about. You can find the time. Don't use time as an excuse of not being able to do this work on your team. Another thing to think about is what this guy discovered. And I love the fact that science and technology is being able to back up what we team people kind of knew, instinctively or, through our work. Now science is proving it. This guy is called Sandy Pentland. He's a real boffin, Harvard, I think, or Yale or MIT. He's from MIT. So he invented these sociometric badges. They're a device that you wear around your neck, and he measured communication in teams. And this is what he found. He found that patterns of communication are the most important predictor of a team's success. Not only are the patterns as significant as all the other factors, individual intelligence, personality, skill, the substance of discussion, the words you use, this is more important than everything else, is the pattern of communication that is going on with your team. So let me give you this is a real team that he studied, and this is what he found. They could hit, the badges could measure people talking, tone of voice, volume, all these different things, except the only thing they don't measure is the actual words you are saying. And in this team, which was not functioning very well, he noticed this imbalance. And the yellow was who's talking the most, the yellow circle. So you can see a couple of people are talking much more than others. Some people are not talking at all. And who are you talking to? Some people are, there's a great dialogue there between, the thick green line is lots of dialogue. The thin green line is only occasional dialogue. This is an imbalance. There were also lots of cultural issues within this team. This was a mixed nationality group, and certain cultural differences were in play. And so he showed them this, and he said, you've got to even this up. Some of you have got to speak less. You've got to speak more frequently to other people. You can't keep just only talking to these guys. And he went away and gave them, that improvement to make, and they did, and their results went up. And this is them a few weeks later or a few months later. They were a much more balanced team. No, they're not completely balanced. We can't be perfect. Some people are still speaking more than others and more frequently to certain people. Maybe operationally that's necessary. But look at the difference. Yeah, how much more that pattern of communication is far more equal across the team. And this is also backed up by the Google Project Aristotle study. The same thing came out of that study as well. So one of the first things you need to do is assess and think, am I speaking too much? Am I not speaking enough? What's happening in your team? Are some people always quiet? And you know what? I know some people are introverts and some people are extroverts, and there's always going to be people who want to speak more than others. but you have to try and work out how to check in. And if you're the leader, again, it's your responsibility to ask the quieter people. Maybe they won't feel comfortable speaking up in group situations. Get them one-to-one. Give them other ways of sharing their opinion without having to speak in front of a group. Maybe they can write their feelings down. Maybe there are different ways you can collect that information and let them communicate. But it's really important, patterns of communication. Now, things get tough. We get triggered emotionally and we have arguments, and I don't have time to get into, communication resolution and all this kind of stuff, but I just want to share with you one kind of concept of how you could perhaps self-control and avoid arguments. Don't get me wrong. Conflict is good. Conflict is necessary. Good conflict. If it descends into toxic communication, blame, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt, which are what's called the four horsemen of poor toxic communication, then it's very, very hard in teams. So a little thought about how you could perhaps self-control. And this is my friend the chimp. So we are human animals and we have our adult conscious selves. And then we also have a chimp inside all of us. And this is the deeply instinctive animal part of the brain where the amygdala is right in the center of your brain. And that amygdala driven response, fight, flight, or freeze, right? We all know it. And it comes out so often. Think about road rage in traffic when someone pulls in front of you and you beep the horn and why is this person taking my slot? That's your chimp coming out because your chimp is thinking that he's protecting you or she is protecting you, and they're very they're survival mode, and so competition, all this stuff can happen. And listen, no one is perfect. It's going to happen. But if you can just be aware and conscious of your chimp and what triggers you and when does it come out, and do certain people trigger you, do certain ways of doing things trigger you. And if you can have a healthy conversation with your team, say, what, it really annoys me when you do that, but you do it calmly with respect, within good intention of fixing, maybe we could find a way that we can communicate better where I don't get triggered. And that person says, well, you also trigger me when this happens. Okay, you can have that conversation. This comes from this great book. This changed my life. This book, Dr. Steve Peters, The Mind Management Program, The Chimp Paradox. I love paradoxes if you hadn't already noticed. So read this book if you want to get into this concept of communication. It will absolutely help you about how you as an individual interact with others, and in a team kind of concept. So tips on communication, seek that equality, that pattern of equality within your team. Do a lot of listening, and help people to avoid feeling anonymous, because we know that disengages people. Control your inner chimp as best you can, especially this happens, and they come out under stress, in tough times, that, they come out a lot. Try, if you can, to seek face-to-face opportunities. I know it's, I appreciate it's not always possible, but we miss it. We need it as humans, So when you can, find a way of just getting some face time, with people together in a room, however possible, when you can. And here's a great little acronym to remember: staying calm. When the pressure is on and the chimps are running around, rattling the cages, trying to get out. Calm, controlled, be an adult. Don't be a child. Listen, actively listen to the other person, and be measured in your response. So staying calm is really, really important.